Which three players could end up being league winners for you in your dynasty leagues? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can check her out on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. You can also check her out at Pro Football Focus, as well as Behind the Steel Curtain, where she's getting ready for a huge, exciting Thursday night football game between the Steelers and the Patriots. How excited are you, Kate, right now?
I don't have a word for it, Marcus. This is about to be the game of the century.
Yeah. Remember when Patriots Steelers used to be really fun?
That, like, back in the Big Ben, Tom Brady era, this would have been a showdown for the ages, but we're down to some backup quarterbacks. We don't even have Ramondre Stevenson in this game. The Patriots have no wide receivers. It's going to be some ugly football, folks, which, because we're saying that, means it's going to be the game of the week. And that's the rule. But per usual, Thursday night football is always ugly. But you know what? At least my Pittsburgh Steelers will rip that Band-Aid off nice and early in the week so I can enjoy my weekend stress-free.
Okay. Well, having said that, on today's show, we're going to be talking about three players who could end up being league winners for you over the next 4 weeks or so, depending on when your fantasy playoffs start. And most of these players are either available. I don't know if they're available, but most of these players are being ranked outside the top 10 of their respective positions. So let's get right into it, Kate. Let's talk about Nico Collins.
Let's talk about Nico Collins, who, Marcus, like, we have been high on Nico Collins. We were, I think, relatively high in comparison to consensus coming in to the season on Nico Collins. But I don't think anybody would have expected the absolute insane year that he is posting. Now, looking at his upcoming schedule, he's got a really tough matchup here in week 14, going up against the Jets, allowing a league low fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. He's got another tough matchup next in week 16 as well against the Browns. But sandwich in between are two matchups against the Tennessee Titans, who are allowing the 6th most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. And now we have CJ Stroud, who's going to need to look to him quite early and often, given their situation without Tank Dell. It's a super, super unfortunate loss. But, we look at Nico Collins. He's already been seeing some pretty significant volume, 9 or more targets each of the last 3 games. Listen to his ranks. Like, I just want to put into perspective how elite Nico Collins has been this year. Among wide receivers with 30 or more targets, Nico Collins has ranked 3rd in yards per reception, 4th in yards after the catch per reception, 3rd in yards per route run, 5th in passer rating when targeted. He has performed among the most elite wide receivers in the game. And, I know there are a couple tough matchups. I still don't think you can sit him at this point because, that whole saying, like, you can't sit your studs. Nico Collins he's officially a stud. And I think these 2 games against the Tennessee Titans, who have absolutely struggled since Kevin Byard went to the Eagles, I think this is a perfect opportunity to snag yourself a league winner. And Marcus, when you look at the price tag for Nico Collins in comparison to some of the other quote unquote studs, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't target him, especially in a win now situation, given the potential for huge upside. He's right now heading into this month was drafted as wide receiver 22 in Dynasty League startups.
Which that's quite a big rise compared to where he was at the beginning of the year, where it's like wide receiver 65. The hard part for me, Kate, is So he's got a really difficult matchup this week against the Jets. Like, is he somebody this week that you're just starting and hoping he figures it out? Or do you want to wait a week before you put him back in your lineup?
I'm starting him this week. I
No
think
hesitation.
no hesitation. And I will say I am fading CJ Stroud this week. I don't think he has an overly great week, but I do think that most of his production is going to be funneled here through Nico Collins. You mentioned, he's continuing to rise up the draft boards, but still not necessarily a guy that you have to pay top dollar price for. And I still think even against in these tough matchups, Marcus, like, do you sit, Devontae Adams for a tough matchup? Do you sit
Yeah.
you don't sit your studs in these tough matchups? But what really does it for me is that, I mean, I genuinely think that, weeks 15 and 17 here, if you're looking for a guy who can absolutely win you a week on his own and get you top 5 production in these 2 weeks, even if you're not high on him in these tougher matchups, Marcus, I think you're in a pretty good spot here to kind of dominate.
So I've got some trades here that I want your thoughts on. If you are in a little bit of a win now window, what you're doing here. So here's one from 2 days ago. Tank Dell for Nico Collins straight up.
I'll take Nico Collins. And Marcus, I love Tank Dell. I love Tank Dell.
That one's tricky.
If you're in a win now, Marcus,
you probably have to. You probably have to. All right, Nico Collins for Drake London in a 2024 first round pick.
Whew, that's a
rich.
That is really rich for me. I'm going to be honest. I think that's a pretty bad trade. And this is the girl who's saying, I love Nico Collins. Even if you're in a win now window, that's a really hard trade to justify, I think.
All right. How about this one? A 2024 second round pick for Nico Collins.
Nico Collins.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, especially if you're in a win now window and maybe you lost.
Hopefully it's the 212, baby.
Yeah, exactly. That's to me, that one's a no brainer. What's a little bit harder is, what about a 2024 first round pick that's projected to be in a 14 team league somewhere between 12 and 14?
That's where it gets tricky.
How much do you love the fantasy playoff matchup for the Texans? So this week against the Jets is really tough, but then it's at the Titans, home against the Browns, home against the Titans.
Love.
The Browns is the only one that scares you a little bit, right?
Browns is terrifying, but Marcus, I'm very happy that it's a home game for the Houston Texans. Yeah. The Houston Texans at home, especially, like, we've seen CJ Stroud post some pretty significant home road splits this year. The factor of it being at home is something that gives me just a little bit less hesitation there. If he were traveling to Cleveland, I would say he's probably not startable, but I think he's startable in all these matchups, even despite the challenges. But again, those matchups against the Tennessee Titans, I think you're pretty much a lock for a top 5 performance from a fantasy wide receiver that you don't have to pay top $5 for. And like, you look at the overall trajectory of the offense, Marcus, like, I want Nico Collins, not just for this playoff schedule, but I want him long term. He is producing as an elite wide receiver. He's 24 years old. He's tied to, CJ Stroud, who he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, not just one of the best rookies in the NFL right now. I think this Houston Texans offense is the real deal. And I do think that, even getting Nico Collins as like the wide receiver 22, that feels like you're still getting in at the basement level for what this offense could be in the months to come, just knowing the trajectory that they're on right now.
So you would trade for Nico Collins right now, who is the wide receiver 22 in our recent batch of Dynasty League Football ADP. I'm going after wide receiver 21 because I think he's going to have a massive December. We will get to him next. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is so easy when you have this many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and they might not have the time or the resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is quick and easy. They have even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even quicker than usual. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We wanted to let you know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, Kate, I want to talk about the guy that I'm trying to go out and acquire right now because I think he's going to have a monster December, and that's Zay Flowers. So, a couple of things. Flowers has been much more productive over the last couple of weeks. We saw him score an unbelievable touchdown against the Chargers. Was that a week ago? Coming off their bye. Kate, you look at their matchups coming up. Home against the Rams. I mean, he should torch this Rams secondary. At Jacksonville on a Sunday night football game. Jacksonville just gave up 356 yards to Jake Browning a week ago, right? They play the
Browning, the stud, Jake Browning.
Now they play the 49ers in I think this would be week 16. That's a tough one, but it's not like you can't get the 49ers secondary. Like it's one of the spots you can't expose. And then in the championship game, they play home against the Miami Dolphins, which should be an absolute shootout. I think Zay Flowers, the schedule sets up for him perfectly. He's playing better. And then on top of that, Kate, Mark Andrews, we haven't really seen what this team looks like without Mark Andrews other than a game or two. Why couldn't we just see a bunch of targets now funneled to Zay Flowers instead of them going to Isaiah Likely?
Yeah, I actually think, as I kind of wrap my brain around Zay Flowers and what this offense looks like without Mark Andrews, maybe in years past, we might have seen, the targets automatically funneled to, Isaiah Likely over and over and over again. But this new passing offense does seem to be more willing to spread the ball around and, look to the wide receiver position a little bit more often. Uh, I, I, I think maybe he could be the biggest winner. Maybe we overthought it a little bit and we thought tight end for tight end amidst the injury to Mark Andrews, but maybe it's not tight end to tight end. Maybe Zay Flowers is the biggest winner from that injury. And I mean, I think you've just seen him, I think, produce so consistently and so solidly. And yet we still haven't even seen the ceiling. So if you're happy with what you've seen so far, I think there's still a lot left on the table here for Zay Flowers. Just he's elusive. He can make plays after the catch. He's a really good football player. So I like this. You love the quarterback. Now, any concerns here, because we have seen with, the emergence of Keaton Mitchell, with the number of running backs that they have, even despite the injury to J.K. Dobbins, we've seen them be able to run enough that they don't necessarily need to emphasize the pass as much as we would like. The defense, obviously, it puts them, in a great position to gain heavily and post a big lead, which then I think we've seen some of the passing value, leaked out of this offense entirely. Any concerns there from the point of view of a game script perspective? Because that's my only hesitancy. I have Lamar Jackson in a keeper league, and I'm going to be honest, I have him and I've got Jordan Love, and these issues have me kind of considering starting Jordan Love at least for this week, but if not moving forward.
I think moving forward, you mentioned the game scripts, like they're just going to be in high scoring games. I mean, we'll see how Trevor Lawrence, if he's able to play, a week and a half from now, but you would expect that game to be a shootout. They play the 49ers on Christmas Day. That's going to be a shootout. And then the Dolphins, I mean, all of these games just project to be more high scoring games than what they played in, whether that's, they've had a lot of these games that they've blown teams out early, so they haven't had to pass a lot in the second half. And even with those games, Kate, he has 6 games this year where he has at least 5 receptions. I just won't be surprised if he gets 3 more targets a game, 2 more catches, and all of a sudden he has 28 receptions over the final 4 weeks of the season. And we see this every year. Like there's always a rookie receiver that just gets peppered with targets and finishes the year strong, whether was it Amon-Ra St. Brown 2 years ago who did it. I'm blanking on some other names now, but we see this happen. Usually these receivers get a little bit hot as we get into December and January. He's just the guy that I'm going to bet on because he already has a big role in the offense, and the role could get even bigger.
Okay, so if you had them 1 for 1 and you could only pick one rest of the season, would you prefer Zay Flowers or would you prefer Nico Collins for their immediate production? I know we're talking Dynasty here, but I'm curious if you had them ranked that closely, who would you rather have through the fantasy football playoffs here?
Probably Nico Collins. The Browns game scares me a little bit, but so does the 49ers. Yeah, it's probably Nico, but long term, I would much rather have Zay Flowers.
It's Nico. It.
I like it's just there's just this one game this week against the Jets that scares me a little bit because the Jets have such good cornerback play, but it does seem like rather than CJ Stroud throwing the ball more to John Mechie or Noah Brown, he's just going to start peppering Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz with even more targets.
I love it.
By the way, Brevin Jordan, who was a commotion pick last week, should have had an even bigger day, had a couple of plays called back. Just wanted to throw that out there to give you a little bit of credit.
Hey.
Kate, let's talk some quarterbacks that could lead us to our fantasy championships because every year, without fail, there's a quarterback that pops off in the final 4 games of the year that ends up helping people win championships. Do you remember who it was last year? I can tell you there was a quarterback last year that was not, I think he was like 1% owned at this exact same time last year, who ended up becoming the most owned fantasy championship winner.
I don't.
Brock Purdy didn't start his first game until week 14 last year.
Right.
And he went absolutely berserk in the fantasy playoffs. Who could be that guy this year? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Skylight. Are you looking for a meaningful gift this holiday season that your loved ones will actually use and enjoy? Listen, I get it. Most holiday gifts tend to be boring, especially if you're a dad. You get like socks, candles, ties. But that's why you have to check out Skylight. Skylight is a touchscreen photo frame that you can send photos to straight from your phone, and they appear in seconds. It's the perfect gift for everyone. I actually got my mom a Skylight last year, and she absolutely loves it. We upload pictures of her grandbabies. Can't tell you how much she loves it. She has it sitting right in her living room. It's so easy to send pictures through the Skylight app, and it takes less than 60 seconds to set up. You can even send your pictures before you open the box. So that way, when mom opens it up on Christmas morning, she'll see the pictures right on it. She'll know what she's getting. As a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $15 off your first purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/lockedon. Again, to get $15 off your purchase, just go to skylightframe.com/lockedon. That is skylightframe.com/lockedon. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. Every day, we will be back on tomorrow's show breaking down this incredible Steelers-Patriots game. I can't even tell you how excited I am to watch it. So make sure you tune in for that. We'll have some commotion for you. But right now, let's talk about the quarterback that is going to lead you to a fantasy championship. And Kate, it's going to be
Josh Dobbs. Yeah. Welcome back to Relevance, baby. I know. So he might sort of be, maybe long forgotten in some fantasy managers, eyes, but I know they had the bye, then, before that there was the 4 interception game and things were looking a little dicey there. But I want to consider the schedule rest of season. Josh Dobbs gets the Raiders, Bengals, Lions, and then week 17 he gets the Packers, which I don't love. But you look at what Josh Dobbs has done, and not necessarily even through the air, it's what he's done with his legs. 40 plus rushing yards in 7 of 12 games this season, a rushing touchdown in 5 of the last 6 weeks. He has been a top 12 quarterback in 4 of the past 5 weeks, including 2 top 5 finishes. I love this schedule, Marcus. The Bengals secondary, the Lions secondary, those are places where they can be exposed. The Raiders, they've put up some decent pressure up front, which I don't know, Marcus, maybe that might mean he wheels out of the pocket a little bit and gets some first downs with those legs. I think this is a perfect schedule for Josh Dobbs. Then you add in the fact that they're getting Justin Jefferson back from a hamstring injury. They've been super cautious. I kind of I can't imagine that this is a situation where maybe he's not 100%. It seems like they've very much taken their time getting him returned from injury. So he'll be throwing to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. They have no run game to speak of outside of Josh Dobbs. This is your league winning quarterback, period.
I like it. As always, I have to go one step grosser than Josh Dobbs.
Too long, Marcus.
All right. You ready?
Okay.
Now, this week is going to be a struggle. It's not going to be good. So you have to kind of just ignore week 14, but have faith going forward. I love Mitchell Trubisky as a quarterback to the rest of the way. Hear me out. He can run. And this has always been the upside with Mitchell Trubisky, is that he can use his legs to make plays outside the pocket. But, Kate, look at the next 3 games after the Patriots. It's at the Colts, so in a dome against a defense that just let Will Levis throw all over them. It's the Cincinnati Bengals at home at Pittsburgh, who have allowed the most explosive plays this year. And then in the fantasy championship, it's at Seattle, that has gotten carved up by everybody on defense. I mean, those are 3 juicy matchups for a veteran quarterback that does have good weapons with an offensive line that's playing better. I won't be surprised if Mitchell Trubisky is 250 total yards a game and 2 touchdowns and provides a really nice floor for a QB2.
Yeah, and Marcus, on the back of that, I actually think these assets in Pittsburgh, the receiving options, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, I think all of them are in a better spot to maybe contribute a little bit more consistently than you would think with Kenny Pickett. We already know that Mitch Trubisky has a higher touchdown ceiling, so there's probably going to be several more passing touchdowns on the board for your receiving options to take advantage of. Score some points. Mitchell Trubisky, I think it's gross. It's really hard to trust this Steelers offense right now with what we've seen in recent weeks. But my hope is that, week 13's loss to the Cardinals is going to be a huge kick in the butt for this team, where they wake up a little bit and say, there is no team that we can take as lightly as we did the Arizona Cardinals. There is no gimme matchup here in the NFL. And the thing is, they have the weapons to do it. So that makes it all the more meaningful.
I just think with that schedule, I mean, everybody's been able to throw against the Bengals. Everybody's been able to throw against the Seahawks, and you're playing in a dome against the Colts, who, again, they can't stop anybody either. This just sets up really well for Trubisky. I know it's
and I'll
gross.
Remind you.
I know.
We just saw Kenny Pickett throw all over the Bengals. Second highest passing yard total of his career came against the Bengals. It didn't translate to any passing touchdowns, but as we know, the Deontay Johnson receiving touchdown, that would have been a touchdown in the Kenny Pickett column as well, had it been challenged, but it was not. Such is life, c'est la vie. But we saw Kenny Pickett look competent. That was one of his best games. Yeah, he looked competent against the Bengals. Mitch Trubisky might eat them alive.
Exactly.
Don't get my hopes up, Marcus.
I said it's probably going to be ugly tonight against the Patriots. So I know there's going to be people that watch this Patriots game and come back to me and say,
Shut
I
your
can't
eyes.
believe you said you. Just wait. The schedule gets so nice for Trubisky where 220, 250 yards each game, a couple touchdowns can get you a really nice base of points, especially if you've been decimated at the quarterback position. And I know a lot of you have been, whether it's been Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins. I mean, Trevor Lawrence now. You're going to have to probably start somebody gross at quarterback. At least give me a quarterback that's athletic and has a very favorable schedule coming up. Any final thoughts before we head out?
Go Dobbs.
Go Josh Dobbs. We should have a little bet. Who has more fantasy points over the next 4 games, Josh Dobbs or Mitchell Trubisky? I think
I'll
it would be
take
fun.
that bet. I will take that bet, Marcus. We're gonna have to come up with some juicy prize for the loser, or the prize for the winner, or
For the winner. I think the loser should the winner gets to pick like the avatar for somebody on Twitter for a week.
All right.
All right, let's do it. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every single day. Again, every day, we'll be back tomorrow to break down Steelers Patriots, so make sure you tune in for that. Go check us out on YouTube. We post videos every single day over there. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Majuk. Go check out her work at Pro Football Focus and Behind the Steel Curtain. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy Thursday Night Football, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.